I didn't think I would be putting together another video today, but I guess I am. I have a Christian writing me, asking me for my deconversion story. And okay, my deconversion story is on video on YouTube. You just have to scroll back far enough. It's pretty far back. Probably 3 or 4 years ago, in fact. That music is really loud and distracting. I'm going to come back after I've turned it down. I do intend to give a shorter version of my deconversion story in this video, since the other one is so old. But it's an unusual situation. This person, who seems very nice, writing to me, genuinely wanting a dialogue with me, and he is initiating it, is telling me not to have suspicion about him, just because I've had pretty much, almost without exception, bad experiences with this exact same scenario in the past. He's also mentioning that, you know, Christians can be abrasive and ruffle your feathers, and the opposite is true. Atheists can be abrasive and ruffle a Christian's feathers, and this is very true. But I am apprehensive. It's like, you know what? He's asking me questions about, you know, well, what first led you to Christ? And it's like, I feel like, you know, when I get into a situation like this with a Christian, I feel like I have to make an accounting of myself. I feel like I'm on the defensive, like if I don't say exactly the right words, or rather like I'm being scrutinized by somebody who's looking for the thing that went wrong with this person. Why, you know, what exactly went wrong with her, and then you can get a toe in the door and try to convert them. That's how I feel, and this is how I feel right now. I feel like, you know what are you looking for? What are you looking for by asking me these questions? What first led me to Jesus? Well, it was all I heard about from practically the day I was born. I was raised by religious parents that talked about Jesus all the time, like he actually existed. I had to go to church. It wasn't even a question. You know, it was everybody that I knew talked about Jesus like he was a real person, and like his existence was just a given. So I never even questioned it. It was just a given. You know, it was, Christmas was Jesus's birthday, and we celebrated Jesus's birthday like you celebrate anybody else's birthday. You know, so I never even thought that there wasn't a Jesus. I didn't know about the whole you need to ask him into your heart stuff until I was about 9 years old, when I went to the Bible camp for the first time. It wasn't even something I was aware of. It was just, you know, Jesus was just there, and I went to church, and I was a good person, and I was, you know, my mom was a Christian, and she did devotions all the time and meditated, and, you know, and that was it. It wasn't really a thought in my mind. And then when I was 9 years old, I went to camp and learned all about how, you know, you have to ask Jesus into your heart and make him your best friend, and he needs to be on the throne of your life. He needs to be the Savior and the Lord of your life, and you need to give yourself to him and put yourself in his hands and basically give him the reins, you know. And the first time I converted, I just did it because I wanted to be like everybody else in the cabin that I was in. Everybody else in the cabin converted, so I did, you know. And I was pretty much, I remember that first year I went to Camp Sambika, which was the Bible camp. That first year, my mom, the very next week after we spent 1 week at Camp Sambika, and the next week we went on a big, well, it wasn't big, it was, I can't remember the name of the boat, but it was a little boat that took us to Orcas Island, and there was a camp on Orcas Island. It was the coolest camp, right on the beach. These cabins that were 3 walls, didn't have a 4th wall, so they were kind of like, you know, that was the coolest camp. But it wasn't a Christian camp, and I remember how shocked and disturbed I was because I ran into a girl who flat out said, I don't believe in God. And this was after a whole week of first of all, I had just asked Jesus into my heart, but it was also a week of heavy duty brainwashing indoctrination at Camp Sambika. You know, singing songs in just twice a day, and, you know, Bibles, devotions, and Bible studies and all the things that you do at a Bible camp. And suddenly I'm in a secular camp, and there's a girl telling me she doesn't believe in God, and I went to the counselor and I said, she said she doesn't believe in God. I was just totally blown away. I mean, the idea was just so foreign to me. I just assumed everybody did. But anyway, I don't really think that dedicating my life at 9 was really a true dedication. I did very much want my mom to love and accept me. My brother was openly hostile about anything to do with religion. He was, I didn't know it, but he became an alcoholic at 14. He was a very angry person after my dad died. But anyway, he was kind of like my mom's golden boy. I wanted her to love me. I wanted points. I wanted her to notice me. So I tried to do everything right. And so when I figured out, well, I had some time where I was going through a really bad time as a 12, 13-year-old kid. I had serious anger issues. I was basically an outcast. My mom didn't care. My brother beat me up, and my mother didn't care. I mean, she'd be in the house, and sometimes even there was a couple times where she and I would be having a fight, and he would come in and beat me up to shut me up, and I would hear her thank him. So it was not a happy time for me, and I rebelled. I was so angry, I wanted to get out of that house in the worst way. I didn't feel safe. I had nightmares about my brother driving his car into the wall in the front of the house, just driving his car into the wall and coming in and killing me. I had all these nightmares about, I just didn't feel safe. And I was angry. I was angry that my brother got all the attention. So I started lashing out. I ran away from home. Honestly, I wanted to go to juvie. I wanted to be put in, you know what? I have to let my kitty cat. I can't believe I said. She's driving me crazy. So I'm going to go get her, put her out, and then I'll be okay, back. The kitty cat is now out. I wanted to get out of the house. I thought that juvenile detention, we called it juvie back then, would be better, would be a better place. So I just lashed out. I tried everything I could to get put in juvie. I did things that I'm not proud of now, but anyway, they were against the law, and I ran away a lot. Anyway, my mom, the authorities gave me a choice. I could either go to juvie or go into child counseling. My mom elected child counseling for me. I didn't even get a say. So I started seeing a counselor. God, I feel like I've said all this stuff before. Anyway, at the same time, Billy Graham was coming to Seattle around that same time, and I went to the Billy Graham crusade, and I went down when they did the call at the end of the thing. I went down with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, in tears, feeling like, I had lost control of my life. And I asked Jesus into my heart. And I guess if you want to know what drew me to Jesus, it was desperation. I didn't know how to survive. I felt like I felt like I couldn't bear it anymore. I didn't want to die. I didn't really want to go to juvie either. I just wanted to be loved. That's all I wanted. I wanted to be loved, and I told the counselor that if my mom would let me have a cat, I would promise to not do anything bad. All I wanted was something to love that would love me. So he told my mom, and then I got to have this cat, which was funny. I didn't get to really shop for the cat. My mom took me to the first ad she saw in the paper. It was a little scrawny cat. I named him Tom. Little tabby cat, just had a white chest. Anyway, I really feel like that is I don't even know anymore which helped me more, becoming a Christian, for real, or having that cat, but I was able to turn off the anger inside, the anger that I had inside. I was able to manage and not feel it as much. And anyway, so that was the start of my Christianity, I think, for real, was when I went down to the Billy Graham crusade, and because I knew what I was doing more, and it was a conscious choice. And I think the reason that drew me was I really just wanted to feel loved, and I wanted to belong. And I thought, you know, this huge Christian community, I would belong to. Not only would I have Jesus as my friend and Jesus in my heart, and I would always have his love no matter what, I would also have the love of this big huge family. That's what I thought. So that was basically it. The rest of my childhood I spent Sambika. I'd go to the camp once a year. As I got older, I pushed for 2 weeks a year instead of 1 week a year, so I got to have more time away from my house, from my mom and my brother. And that helped a lot, but it was always really hard for me when the 2 weeks were over, because it was this wonderful, warm community. And that's what I kind of grew up thinking Christianity was. That's how I thought it was everywhere. But that was just the camp. When I was a young adult, I went to work at Sambika. I worked 2 summers there, and then I wanted to stay there. I didn't want to go back home. So I became a Christian service volunteer and lived in a little tiny trailer. It was so small. And I walked quite a distance to Denny's, so I could have some kind of job. For a while I didn't even work there, and I would take food. During the winter it was a conference center, and we had adult groups, and so on the weekends they'd have these big conferences, and the fridges would always be full of food. So during the week I would live on that. This is before I got the job at Denny's. Anyway, so that continued my perception that Christians were all, you know, wonderful, warm people. And then I finally got out of Sambika. I finally, you know, I couldn't be poor anymore. I wanted to do something with my life. I guess this video is going to be really long. I thought it would be a short little summary. So I went back home, and it wasn't so bad. It wasn't so bad as it was. My brother was quite a bit different, I think, because he was drinking, and he had found his own way to deal with his pain. My mom was working. I didn't really have to deal with either one of them very much. I went to work at a pizza place, Pizza Haven, met new friends, eventually met my husband, and I'm trying to think. Oh, I think the first thing that really made me aware was when I invited these people from Sambika to my wedding. The one who I adored the most, who had been almost like a father figure to me, John, I asked to stand up for me because I didn't have a dad. So he and his wife came to my wedding, and he stood up for me. You know, you think when you ask somebody to do something like that, that's a pretty big honor, but I never heard from them after I got married. I never heard from them. I never got a phone call. I never got a letter. I never got a card. It's like I ceased to exist after that wedding. They did their little duty, I guess. He did his little duty. And then I ceased to have any significance to him whatsoever. And then there was another couple, older couple at this camp, the Cresses, who I just looked up to. I really, really, they didn't even come to the wedding. I invited them, they didn't even come. It was like the moment I ceased to be part of that community, I did not matter to them. I did not matter to anybody in that community that I had lived with for years and years. That was probably the first chink in my armor as a Christian. It still hurts me. Anyway, so I became pretty much an independent. I never really did like church very much. I was a Christian in my own way. I read the Bible in my own way. I prayed. I'd go out in the woods and pray. I would pray on the bus coming home from work. I prayed whenever I felt like it. I prayed whenever I needed a friend. And but there were always things that nagged at me when I read the Bible. Things that I knew when I read it. This couldn't possibly be from God. This has to be something that men made up. All these restrictions against women not being able to ask questions in church, women not being able to wear jewelry, women, if you have a baby girl, you have to be in isolation twice as long because you're twice as dirty as if you had a baby boy. I mean, all these things that are in the Bible that are so ugly against women just rubbed me the wrong way, and I would justify it. And then with my husband, I got into paleontology with the Northwest Paleontology Association at the Burke Museum, and got heavily into digging for fossils and just science. It was the coolest hobby. But I think another thing that really hit me was I was trying to get back into church, and I went to Westlake Chapel, or I think it's Westgate Chapel in Edmonds, and the head pastor was putting down the dino days at the Burke Museum, and they act like they know what they're talking about. Obviously he was a creationist, and he was putting down dino days and making fun of the people who put dino days on. And here I am in the audience, and I was one of those people. So when the thing was over, I went up to him at the end of the service, and I said, why do you... I was there, and that's a huge joy in my life, digging for fossils. And he looked at me and goes, well, does it glorify God? Like, everything you do has to glorify God? Like, your whole life has to be about God? That was a huge turnoff for me. I had been going steadily to that church for a while because they had a huge music program that I really enjoyed, but that was just such a turnoff. That and the fact that a couple times I had gone early and I had watched, because I was getting into theater, and I had, I know what rehearsing for a show looks like. That's exactly what it was before they opened the doors, really opened the doors. I'd be in there because I'd get there early because I just lived down the street. And they would be rehearsing. They'd be rehearsing the songs and the program and the whole 9 yards. It was just a show like any other theater puts on. That's all it was. Another turnoff. It was just a show. It's just a big, huge money-making thing. So yeah, it's just, those things just added up, and I don't even know anymore. It's been a while. I can't even say what was the big, huge thing that finally, I had a couple people I really admired that, I was talking one time about this wonderful thing that happened to me that I thought was kind of like a miracle, and they said something to me that, like, really? Kind of like that girl back on Orcas Island said, just put me up short, like, really? One of them just turned to me and said, none of that's really true, right? Anyway, it was a gradual, painful process. I just realized over the maybe about a year's time that things just didn't add up, and that my scientific, the little bit that I know about science, was always saying, where does God fit in? Where is God necessary in all this? I mean, another thing that really struck me as odd, I always believed animals had souls. I always did. Even when I was a Christian, I believed animals had souls. Even the animals that aren't pets, have nothing to do with humans, live their entire lives wild. I believed all animals, all living things had souls. So there's obviously, humans have a separate heaven because we're special, made in God's image. So there's some other heaven that all the animals were. And then I'm like, okay, so what about animals from the past? Are there dinosaur souls in heaven? Did dinosaurs, when they died, did they go to heaven? Their souls? What about aliens from other planets when they die? Why, if God is the creator of everything, why would he give souls only to the creatures on this planet? Why not all the other planets? And then it's like, okay, so are there going to be alien life souls in heaven too? Are we going to run into the souls of creatures from other planets in heaven? It just started to not make sense to me. You know, and the whole idea that is this one planet, this one species is so special and none of the others, it just makes no sense to me. That a God that created the whole universe would just be so obsessed with one little planet and one little species on it. Makes no sense to me. And finally one day I couldn't believe anymore. It was an accumulation of a whole bunch of these things to the point where I just couldn't believe anymore. And then I started really scrutinizing the Bible, and I started reading about where the Bible came from, who put it together, when it was put together, the forces that caused it to be put together. I realized it was man-made. It was all contrived. It had nothing to do with God inspiration. It was all man-made, and reading that most of the authors of the Bible are anonymous writers, there's just so many things. Why would I believe in a religion where the book is, you know, it's all based on the Bible, and the Bible is bullshit. So I think that was the final straw. When I finally went and read about the origins of Christianity, how it came to be, the fact that Jesus was, if he even ever existed, was forgotten completely about after his death. Nobody even talked about him for 60, 70 years? And then suddenly this little cult started up. Anyway, just a whole bunch of things. I think if people read and researched the origins of this religion, they'd be a lot less likely to believe it. If they researched how Christianity came to be, if they researched how the Bible came to be, and who put it together, what were the, instead of just doing what I did for so long, blindly going along, just trusting everything. Oh my God, that girl over there says there's no such thing as God. Anyway, so that's my story. This might even be longer than my original deconversion story, but I hesitate to talk to this person, to write to this person, because I feel like, I'm being judged. Well, was she really a Christian? What did she do wrong? What was wrong with the story? What can I do to I don't know. I don't ever want to go back. I never want to go back to living a lie. That's the bottom line. I'm almost fucking dead. I'm over halfway there in my life. I've only now discovered self-love, and it doesn't have to be, I don't have to have somebody love me to feel loved. I don't have to depend on something else to love me. I'm only now starting to accept myself and love myself. And you know what? I blame religion for that. I blame this religion. So, if you've been watching all this time, holy shit, this is going to be a long video. Thank you for watching. I'm going to put this up, and hopefully this nice person who's been writing me will read it or hear it. And if he still wants to talk to me, fine, but I do not want to be saved. I do not want to be fixed. I'm very happy with where I am, and I don't think that my experience is less than any other Christians. I don't think that I was a false Christian or not a real Christian. I was real in every sense of the word. As much as you can be a real anything when the religion that you believe in is a lie. So now I have to go do. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have a little bit of. I found a wine that I really love. It's just really it's really good. So I'm going to have a little wine and kick back and watch something happy on my TV and not feel bad. So if you've been watching, thank you. Bye.